Hi, and welcome to On the Spot. My name is Ronnie Wiley, and to my left is the new EMA director, Wade Wiley. Wade, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on the show. The new EMA director, Adrian Ellis, retired after a long tenure as the director. You get big shoes to fill.
Yep. Yes, I do. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to really do some good work for Fayette County and our citizens. So.
Yeah, Adrian kind of laid a great solid foundation with to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've a lifelong resident here in Fayette County.
Yep. Born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised, and started off firefighter, correct? At your career?
I did. So in 1994, I started as a firefighter. I was already in the military, the National Guard at the time, so I kind of did both the whole time. Went to Iraq in 2006 and 2007 where I was injured by an IED. Ooh. So I had to retire from the Connersville Fire Department. When I retired, the VA paid for me to finish my education, so I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And then I actually went to work for the VA teaching Lean Six Sigma process improvement. Yeah. And from there, John Buckman, who was the director of the Indiana Fire Academy, hired me. And I worked for him for a couple years and then was quickly promoted to the director of the Indiana Fire and Public Safety Academy.
Oh, wow.
So all firefighter training in the state would run through my office. And we did a lot of good work there in the academy. I seen this opportunity to come to Fayette County with Adrian retiring. And being a lifelong resident of Fayette County, I want nothing but the best for our citizens.
Yeah.
So we really, I want to spend some time and help make things better, our response capabilities, our resources, things like that. And his retirement allowing me to step into his shoes and take the ball from there is a great opportunity for me and for the citizens of Fayette County.
Fayette County, in this area, other than Wayne County, is like the biggest within Union, Rush, Franklin County, not land-wise, but population size. Do those smaller counties look towards us as far as, okay, what's Fayette County doing, and we need to copy that?
So there's a district. We're part of District 6. There's 13 counties in District 6. So all the EMAs in District 6 meet regularly. We talk about our emergency preparedness. We try to mitigate hazards and issues before they become issues. And then if we do have an incident or an issue, whether it's a big winter storm, flooding, tornado, anything like that, then we have plans and we respond and try to help oversee the incident command of that incident. Yeah. So everybody that responds to it, like fire, EMS, police, or law enforcement, they all are working off the same sheet of music.
So you guys have to do a lot of forward thinking.
Yes.
A lot of anticipation of things that may not happen.
Yep, right.
Yeah, and so the anticipation before you have to look back at the past. What events? Obviously flooding around here, obviously with tornadoes, but what other catastrophes do you guys look at? So
we look at a lot of different things, from anything from cybersecurity.
Never thought about that.
Power, water are supplies that our citizens need to survive on. We have to try to harden those areas so people can't attack us easily.
So more than just natural disasters?
Yep. Hazardous materials such as our railways, trucks that come through Fayette County hauling radioactive material or hazardous material. We have to plan for all of that. So we have a coordinated response in the event of an incident. So.
Wow, so you have to know when somebody, especially with that overpass that we've been having, so you have to know when. Yeah, I'd have somebody standing on 11th Street going, "Turn here, please turn here," with that video. So, and that's something I'm sure that you guys have to deal with that overpass.
Yep.
Yeah,
you just never know, whether it's going over it or it's going under it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so,
you definitely.
You know, once there is an incident and it gets to the level to where I need to be involved with it, that's where I'll start reaching out to our state partners, and then they'll reach out on our behalf to the federal government, FEMA, to help from there.
So how much did working at the state level with your fire training benefits this job?
It gave me really good insight into what the EMA managers or directors in the state do. I had frequent contact with them. We actually are developing the position-specific task books, which is a whole nother conversation, but it's what individual response team members do in that if they're called to an incident. So we help develop the training, and then we would certify those individuals to be able to respond to certain incidents as a team in the state.
So who are you working with locally other than the police and fire?
So mainly I work with all the county fire departments, city fire department, city and county police, sheriff's department, but I also work with the county highway, the street department, the state highway, all government functions, so to speak, including up to making sure that our continuity of operations as a county government, city government continue in the event of a disaster. So safe places, things like that for our elected officials. In winter, warming stations, you know, should power be out for an extended period of time, we don't want our citizens to freeze, or we want to help them out by giving them a place to go. So my first really start to this position was the cold spell we just had. So I had an emergency meeting with all the county and the city leadership to develop a plan, since I wasn't fully the county EMA director at the time, but I wanted to make sure things got off on the right start in the event that we had something with that.
And wow, like I said, we have to forward think of things. You know, normally with jobs, you tend to think, well, if it hasn't happened yet, don't do it, because the fact you don't want to waste money. With your job, you have to plan.
Yes.
Even if it never happens, because it saves lives.
Right. And the emergency manager for the county is somebody that's looking at everything that could possibly go wrong. We hope and pray that it never goes wrong.
That would never happen here. It's Connersville.
Right. But it does happen. And when it does happen, if we don't have a coordinated response to it, then everybody runs around not sure what this department's doing or that department's doing or who's calling to get the supplies. And that's my job, to make sure that those lines of communication are open and to make sure people know what each other is doing, so we have that coordinated attack to a response.
I remember as a kid over in Dayton, growing up over there, during the big Cold War scare, you know, the nuclear, that movie The Day After or whatever, and we were always afraid because, you know, Wright Pat's right there, and so that was obviously going to be somewhere that's going to be targeted. And so we were all, you know, prepared all the time for a nuclear war attack. And then you think of Connersville way over here. Well, that's still very close to Wright Pat. But again, there's always this. Well, Connersville's a small town. You still have to prepare for the big city.
Absolutely.
You know, I didn't know that we had radioactive waste coming through here.
So we have all kinds of things that come through that most people in our county don't know about. But it's my job.
Chickens.
Right, and it's my job to know that when those things are coming through, making sure that they go through pretty much unscathed. But if there is an incident, then to start implementing the plans to respond to that in the appropriate way.
A lot of pressure.
It is, but I thrive under pressure really well. Working at Homeland Security for the last 5 years, had a lot of different projects going all the time, and I like being busy. My wife would probably say I'm a workaholic, because when I go home from work, I go to work at home.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You never turn it off.
Right. Yeah. And being an emergency manager, you can't turn it off.
Right.
Because you just never know when something's
Right.
going to happen, and you have to be ready at all times.
I'm sure on high alert when you're on vacation. You're
Yep.
aware of, you see things differently than we do.
I do, and I, when I see things or crowds of people gathered, maybe it's at a concert or a venue, and I'm thinking, all right, where are all these people going to go? What are they going to do in the event something happens, and who's going to help coordinate that? So yes, those are kind of things I look for.
Yeah, so you just really can't go to a concert and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, because I'm always looking for exits or places for people to hide, things like that. But
do you ever identify yourself if you go someplace to people and say, "Hey, listen, I'm here if you need me"?
If the circumstance arose for something like that, I haven't really been into a place where I've seen a need.
Yeah.
Now, for example, there was a car accident here on 5th and Central the other day, and as the emergency manager, I was right there in front of it, so I stopped. But as soon as law enforcement got there, EMS, I just got my truck and went on because they can handle that. As a responder, I wanted to make sure things were taken care of.
Wow. So going back, growing up here in Fayette County, did you aspire to be a firefighter? Did you aspire to be a responder? Did you aspire for all of this to happen?
So originally, I wanted to be a state police officer growing up, but firefighting's in my family tradition.
Yeah.
So my dad was a firefighter for Carnesville. My uncle was the fire chief here, and when I got the opportunity to take the agility test, and then I passed it and got hired on. Once you make your first run, you're hooked as a responder for life. Ever since I can remember back to my early teens, I've wanted to be in public safety some way.
Wow. So that's so. Did you ever think about? I mean, now when you were working for the state, did you live outside of Fayette County?
No, I lived here in Carnesville and drove.
Yes, that's
every
what I
day.
did too. Yeah. When I worked in radio all over the town, I just drove.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of driving.
It's funny because on the morning there, I'm preparing for my day, what all I've got to do. On the evening, I make phone calls from the minute I leave my office all the way back to Fayette County.
Right. Yeah.
Getting business done because it's a quiet time for me to actually get things done.
I tell you what, the way the certain cell phone services around here, it's with a V. Yeah. Anyway, we're moving on from that. And that's another thing when you talk about cell service, you have. Because I have a certain carrier that's the service is terrible, and if I'm out in the country, sometimes can I call 911 if I don't have cell service, or do I have to have cell service?
So there is a SOS feature on phones. So when cells go down, what it will do is pick up the whatever local line that is when you dial 911, and it will call. Now it may call the state. It may not call the local 911, but it will get the ball rolling to get that response.
Even if I say it's even if the signal's dead.
Yep.
Oh, good.
If you ever look on your phone, right up at the top in the corner, usually it says SOS.
Oh, okay.
That lets you know you still have that lifeline. Now, where I live out in Columbia area, off of Coltrane Hill, it's complete dead zone. If I don't have my internet out there, I don't have cell service.
Yeah, that's.
But I always have that little SOS symbol on my phone.
Even there.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
I wondered that.
And I'm going to work with our local cell phone providers, internet providers, to possibly get some towers moving in that direction, the county, in these dead spots.
There's a lot.
There is. And I know Adrian had started those conversations with people, and I'm going to pick up where he left off and try to get at least good cell phone coverage all over our county.
We talk about it, back in the old days, didn't have to worry about a cell phone.
Nope.
Yeah, and now it's like, if you get out my driveway, I don't have my cell phone.
Right.
I panic.
It's a way of life now.
Yeah, it's such a way of life. You're right, it's such a way of life. Going back, years ago, even 10 years ago, you can see the advancement of how much technology. Where do you see the future of your position?
So I see the future of the EMA position as being somebody that is very heavily surrounded by technology because we use technology to monitor the weather, the drought conditions. When we have those drought conditions, burn bans,
Never
things
thought
like
about that. Yeah.
right? So the county EMA, it covers all of that. And speaking of things that they cover, like I mentioned earlier, we recently had this winter weather event, right?
Yeah.
So it's my job to work with the county commissioners and let them know what categories or travel status our county should be in. So there's 3 levels, yellow, orange, and red. Yellow is just an advisory, right? That lets people know that conditions are deteriorating, be careful driving. Orange is a category, travel advisory, that means that things are bad enough you really shouldn't get out. Right. But if you have to go to work, school, groceries, go do that stuff, just be very cautious. Right. And then red, I can't declare a red travel status as the county EMA. That has to be done by the commissioners, and they have to sign a declaration saying all travel except for public safety has been canceled. Nobody can, go out. We try really hard not to do that because that shuts down businesses, it shuts down work, and it has an economical impact. Now, I would say we're not opposed to doing that if the circumstances were right.
Right.
But it has to be
78.
Yeah, it has to be really bad for us to do that. And the commissioners have to sign that declaration to make it a red travel status.
Yeah. And obviously, if it's that bad, I mean, with technology, they do it over Zoom, probably.
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, everybody can work from home pretty much. So.
Yeah. Which, so you can do yellow and orange, correct?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I never thought of, because you had mentioned about, of course, I'm thinking of natural disasters, tornado thing, but, cybersecurity. What else do you guys, I'd imagine I could probably mention more of what you don't do than, because you encompass so much.
We do. Pandemics, so COVID-19, right, when that hit. So the EMAs in all 92 counties in Indiana were a part of that response of making sure we got vaccines places, making sure that resources, tools, face masks, things like that were handed out. And that comes down through FEMA to the state, and then the state hands it out to the 92 counties. So the EMA director has to be ready. He has to have the data he needs to be able to push up to the state, hey, I need X number of masks. We need hand sanitizer. We need this number of COVID vaccines. But things like that is part of the EMA response. You could probably put everything on a dartboard and throw it, and you would pick an area we'd have to work in. Including, working with the health department. So several years back, there was a sickness that a lot of ducks in the southern part of the state came down with, geese. They had to, it was a huge response, but you just never know those pathogens that are carried that way. And they had to eliminate all of those geese.
Never heard that.
Right, yeah. So it was huge in the southwestern part of the state. It was it was actually a small disaster for them. So
wow. So you guys handle that too?
Yep.
Wow. And who makes that decision? I mean, got to kill the geese, and then you got PETA after you.
Right.
People are protesting.
Right. And you have to just work with all the elected officials, the leadership, and the response agencies, fire, EMS, police, and make calculated decisions based on the risk.
So you're all over the place, especially with the pandemic. You've got to probably work with the hospitals and find out, okay, how many people are sick, health department numbers. I mean, you're working with every entity to come up with numbers.
Yep.
How many people work under you?
Me. Me.
Well, thank God you're bald, because you'd be wondering, how do I do this? Well, I guess you have to be a workaholic. Wow. So it's amazing, because I'm going into this thinking that your job, the EMA job, Adrian's job, was just to make sure that if there's a flood, it's contained. We're taking care of. It's just natural. I didn't think of anything beyond that. I didn't think about geese.
Right.
I didn't think about anything
bird flu,
like that.
things like that.
Bird flu. Never thought about
Right.
that. Pandemic stuff. I never thought about emergency management. I guess anything that's an emergency.
Right. Anything.
Yeah. Anything. Yeah. When you think about the cyber stuff, that's what kind of gets scary.
Right. Yeah. And part of some of my short-term responsibilities as the EMA director is looking at our buildings, our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure, such as the hospital, grocery stores, things like that people need to survive, and hardening those areas, from attacks from cybersecurity, or it could be a bad actor, right? So we want to make sure that we're
a bad what?
A bad actor, which would be a person that has ill intentions.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
Bad actor. Okay, I was
Right.
thinking of, like me on stage or something.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone with ill intentions to harm. So, we try to stay up on the latest trends in technology and how to pinpoint those things, find those people, not necessarily to do anything with, but just to kind of highlight, so we keep an eye on things.
So you're constantly being educated.
All the time. It's a nonstop 24/7 process.
Yeah. Wow. So you have to stay ahead of the game, anticipate. I mean, it's unbelievable. Again, talked about the future, but I mean, it's just a little pin of what we talked about. You talked about technology. How far in advance do you guys go, or is there a limit?
So there's not really a limit. We have to do what we can afford, obviously. So that is usually what limits most of what we can get done, because we do have to keep the taxpayers in mind.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend frivolously on things that we don't necessarily need to make it. My goal with response is to get us recovered back to the state we were.
Right.
So we work through those processes with our elected officials, those that sign those checks or spend that money, and we have to work within our means, so to speak.
So when you think of do you get anything from the state or from the federal level that's like, okay, here's certain scenarios for a county the size of Connersville, like, because obviously Indianapolis has different, they're a capital, they're a much bigger city, they're a much bigger metropolitan area than we are, so they have probably different. But do they have like, okay, Wade, here's scenarios that you guys probably need to look at that's happening, in New Jersey area that's a small town your size? Do they give you scenarios like that to look into?
So we have state level exercises almost yearly. And what we do is we look at the needs from all 92 counties that way and see what the biggest threat is. And that's usually what we practice on. But every year we fill out what is called a THIRA. It's a threat and hazard identification. We send that to the state. That also allows us to get grant funding for some of our response capabilities. And being the EMA director, that's part of my job, is to make sure that we're going after state and federal funding to help support Fayette County. Because if I'm not doing it, somebody else is.
Right, yeah, they're getting
so we want our fair share to make sure that we can respond.
So you get the federal money. Do you get any local donations, or is this all just federally funded and taxpayer funded?
It is taxpayer funded. Now, something new that I started as the academy director was accepting donations for fire training. And Director Thacker at Homeland Security has a great vision for that agency, and is taking.
Is that the state level, or is he the federal?
That's the state
level.
But we will probably be looking at ways our citizens in Fayette County can donate, whether that's time, helping do something. In a disaster, let's say it's a flood, we may need people to help fill sandbags, things like that, which we'd ask for volunteers. But, we'll look at different methods and means to organize some funding. And in my book, the answer is never really no. It's just figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Again, I'm totally blown away by everything that you guys do and have to think about, and especially on the budget that you guys have. I mean, again, thinking of a county this size, and and again, I think you have to think of the land,
topography.
Topography. Topography. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. Because we, have the hilly side of us. How does that affect your planning with the hills that we have? And
so part of emergency planning is knowing where low areas are for drainage. Our bridges that nobody would probably think twice about crossing out in a county. We have to make sure those are structurally sound and working with the county highway department, things like that. So everything comes into play. From weather to topography to rivers and streams, it's all part of emergency planning.
Well, your day in the life. We need to follow you. Do like a day in the life of what you, especially when it's all you.
Yep.
Wow. So it's just it's you. It was just you and then Adrian before you, and just you working with, and nobody under you.
Right.
Wow.
So, typically,
is that plan on changing?
Well, eventually I would like to see it change. That's something I'll have to work out with the commissioners and the council for Fayette County.
You get a budget?
I do have a budget, rather small one right now, but we'll work on increasing that to get our capabilities to where they need to be for the future. And as you probably are well aware, anything that has to do with public safety is more expensive because those tools need to not break when you're using them.
Right, sure, absolutely.
So we have to be able to rely on those tools, the instruments, the technology. We'll work together, trying to build relationships. That's a part of my philosophy. My personal philosophy is to build those relationships because people work well together. We just have to find that common denominator to make that happen.
Yeah. With your job, especially when I think of the roads, I think of we have state roads, county roads, city roads, and some of them are all three in the same area.
Right.
How difficult is that to deal with three different entities in one setting? So
it's not really as difficult as one might think because the state highway, NDOT, county highway, everybody knows what roles they're supposed to play in the event. Let's say it's an oil spill from a semi truck. Whenever those first responders show up to deal with that initially, their first job is to contact the right people to come clean that spill up. And each of those highways departments know what they're supposed to do. NDOT has a spill response. Fayette County Highway does. Depending on who maintains that road, it is going to dictate who runs that spill response.
And obviously everybody knows.
Right. They do know.
So there's no no cross.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just think of an incident out in Arizona where there was Thunderbird half a Thunderbird in Phoenix was on Indian reservation, and one of it. Anyway,
tribal police on one side,
and the Indians were upset with the city because of some sort of fire thing, and so they shut half of it down, and, and like you're not, and they were supportive. But it's amazing. So again, we got about a minute to go. Could we touched on your future? Tell us how anybody can get in contact with you to help you if they need to volunteer or anything.
Yep, absolutely. My email is ema@co.fayette.in.us. Or if they look up our phone number on the Fayette County website under EMA, Emergency Management, they'll see my phone number and my email address there. That being said, you see me out walking around in Fayette County, I'll probably be taking pictures of our infrastructure, things like that. Just stop and say, hey, this is who I am. I'd like to talk to you a minute.
Yeah,
So pretty easy going. I like working with people. So
yeah. Wade Walling, that's the guy to see. Protecting us. This is the guy that's protecting us when we don't even know it. Wade Walling, God bless you. Thank you very much for being
Absolutely.
here on the show On the Spot, and we'll see you next month on The Spot.